Okay, hi guys. In this first video, we're going to be looking at problem 1 in your homework. I got a new microphone that's built into my. I actually got some Sony earbuds with a microphone, so I think it's going to be a little bit better quality sound. I hope so. So it won't be quite so. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit easier to listen to. So anyway, problem 1, Camden's Cakery is one of many dessert cafes serving a local community. Each cafe produces a slightly differentiated product. There are no barriers to entry or exit, and the firm is in long-run equilibrium. So we know because of the description that this is this firm is in a monopolistic competition situation, mainly because the products are slightly differentiated and there are no barriers to entry or exit. And we also know this firm is in long-run equilibrium, which means they are earning zero economic profit. So we need to draw a graph that correctly labels your demand curve, your marginal revenue curve, marginal cost curve, long run average total cost curve, and also show the profit maximizing output and the price. We also want to show where a total revenue is maximized at QR. So where are we earning our maximum total revenue? Okay, and then we want to answer the question: Do the firms in this market experience economies of scale, diseconomies of scale, or neither in long-run equilibrium? Explain. Okay, so I'm going to give you some help with this. Hopefully by now, especially after reading your book, you should be able to draw this graph. And the best one, I think, to look at in your book, I've got right here. And that's this graph right here that's from your book. It's Exhibit 12.3. Let me grab my, let me find what I did with it. Here it is. Oh, yeah. So this is just showing you this idea that when you have free entry and exit in the market, then the long-run equilibrium is going to eventually get to a point where you're making zero profit here and here. So if we look at this, you can see that the firm is going to operate where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That's where they're going to produce, and they're going to charge the price, the higher price that they find on their demand curve, which is exactly the same as a monopoly. Now, what happens when firms are making a profit, as they are here, and why are they? Because the price, actually here, the demand curve, and therefore the price where we start is above the average total cost curve here. So this condition where they start at D0, they're making a profit at D0, MR0, and Q0. So what happens is firms are going to come into the market, which is going to mean each individual firm's demand curve is going to shift to the left because consumers have more choice and can go to other bakeries. So that the demand curve is going to shift to the left until we get to a point where each firm in the market has a price that is equal to their average total cost right here, and that's going to be at their long-run equilibrium and zero economic profit. Now, if firms are experiencing a loss, as we see over here, if their price, where where they find their price on their firm's demand curve is below their average cost, then over time firms are going to leave the market. And when firms leave the market, it gives consumers less choice. So the firms that stay in will see their demand curve shift to the right until such point as their price equals average cost or average total cost. And that is where they're going to be at long run equilibrium and zero economic profit. So I wanted to sort of remind you that this is a very good graphic in your book to see this. The graph we're going to draw for our problem is going to look like this. Now you don't have to draw your total revenue here. I just drew this to show that total revenue is going to be maximized where marginal revenue is zero. Because remember, marginal revenue, this curve right here, is the change in total revenue. So as you see, this curve is getting gradually flatter, so the changes are getting smaller and smaller as we increase our quantity. So if the changes are getting smaller, then our marginal revenue curve is going to be downward sloping. And at the point where the change is zero, where we have a flat slope right here, at that point, total revenue is maximum and marginal revenue is zero. And that's where we're going to maximize our revenue. And I wanted to just, so that's why I, in my drawing, I added in the total revenue curve. Now, the other important thing to see here, let me get this out of the way. In a monopolistic competitive industry, or competitively monopolistic, if you can, that's a lot of syllables, competitively monopolistic, the firms are going to find where marginal cost equals marginal revenue right here at this point, and then move straight up to where that corresponds to a point on the firm's demand curve. And that is typically going to be where your long run average cost curve is still moving down. It's not going to be here if this were a perfectly competitive market, you would operate where the marginal cost curve intersects the long run average total cost curve, and it always does this at the long run average total cost curve's lowest point. That is not the case in monopolistic competition. It typically is where long run average total cost is still decreasing as we produce more output. So we're somewhere in here, okay? So this is what this should look like. Now, what else do we want to answer here? Let's just go back to make sure. Okay, so we have everything on here. We want to explain whether we are experiencing economies of scale, diseconomies of scale, or neither in the long run. Well, if we're in long run equilibrium here, we can see that at this point right here, as we produce more, we're still lowering our long run average cost. So as we produce more units, our long run average cost is decreasing. So that would tell us that we are experiencing economies of scale. And I believe that takes care of everything that we wanted to answer for number one. The other way you could say this to answer part C is you could just simply say that we are producing at a quantity that is to the left of the minimum point on the long run average cost curve. Okay, problem 1.